who's the most influential? What's variable has the most impact as far as what an individual can do to change the entitlement? Who does that lie in?
I mean, it's always in the individual who understands it.
I
Like
like that answer.
you, like whoever is listening to this, that's the person that has the most impact on understanding how to change course of the direction of the culture.
Welcome to the Impactful Engineer Project. I'm Steve Maxey, and with my co-host and brother Jake, we are here to bring you guidance, fresh ideas, and the tools to help you become an impactful engineer.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Impactful Engineer Podcast. This is Steven, come on, man. All right, this is a What's on Your Mind episode. This is just Steve and I talking about what is on our mind. Big surprise. And we were thinking about what to call it. We were trying to tag this episode format. Came up with some pretty interesting acronyms, which is why we were laughing, and I messed up. I caught myself there. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going to say WOIM.
What's on your mind? Okay. Whew. And I even stopped an F-bomb. Like, okay, doing good. All right, Steven.
Yes, sir.
What is on your mind today?
On my mind. Well, let's see. So I've had conversations recently with some various people about entitlement. So in entitlement in the workplace, outside the workplace, etc. But I do want to kind of bring it in about the workplace entitlement, right? And I think it boils down to kind of a simple equation, right? You have that empowerment, employee empowerment, minus expectations and accountability, which equals entitlement. So
Your level of entitlement, the level of
yes,
this you're talking
yeah,
about. Okay.
that is your amplitude of entitlement.
And there would be this balance that we're supposed to strive for.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
and so
yeah. The more accountability, bringing it closer. I see what you're saying. That's a good one.
Yeah. So organizations, want to take care of their employees. They do things for them. Free coffee or outings or whatever. Which is awesome. But if an organization doesn't implore accountability to those employees, then that festers a culture of entitlement within the organization. And so how do you counter that? Because you want to take care of your employees, right? Because the only way you're going to have high performance employees is if you take care of them. If you just churn them out, you're going to lose all the good ones, and you're going to keep the people who are just in despair. And that's not how you want to run an organization. So you want to take care of them, but how do you build that accountability to not have an entitlement culture? And that's the expectations that you set for your employees. And so, from previous discussions like you and I have had, how do you do that? You have to tell your direct reports or your employees or whatever it may be, what your expectations are ahead of time, upfront, early in the relationship. So that way you can hold them accountable. Because if you don't do that, you can't just say, well, why didn't you get this work done? I'm like, well, you didn't tell me when it was due or how much I had to do or how to do it or whatever, so you can't hold them accountable. So you have to set those expectations early on, and then you can follow up with that accountability. And then if you're taking care of your employees very well, you're going to build that culture of excellence, that high performance team. So, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty short topic. I don't think there's, we don't need to talk about it for, an hour here, but I think it's a very important topic. And it's something that I think both employees and employers or managers within an organization need to understand. So, from an employee perspective, what I think what you could do to follow along the lines of that good culture is to ask for what the expectations are early on. If you're not getting it right up front, whether your manager's too busy or whatever that case may be, you ask them like, hey, I want to make sure that I am living up to your expectations. What are they? And so you have to be proactive to find that out, because then you can hold yourself accountable and then be a high performance employee.
Excellent. Yeah. So from an employee perspective, drive the need for accountability from others.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah. And that only drives your accountability to yourself as well. So that's great. So from an employee perspective, how do we change the equation to less entitlement? Drive accountability, seek it from others. Because they may not know either how to hold you accountable. I've seen it happen everywhere I've worked. There's things that just a leader will not set the accountability bar, and they can't compare you to anything else. It's like, this is messed up. We know why it got a little messed up, or maybe there's some friction here, and we don't know why. We actually do know why, but then we can't hold the other person accountable. It's like, oh, well, you didn't tell me this, and it turns into this whole defensiveness kind of spat, and you get nowhere. But it's like, oh no, but we told you last week this was going to be whatever, the effort, the task, whatever. It didn't get done. That's the accountability there. And you can always go further and say, why didn't it get done? But you have a baseline to start from. So the answer to why it didn't get done isn't because you flat out didn't tell me that I was supposed to do it, or you didn't have some hidden expectation that, oh yeah, they're just supposed to know, right? That's a big thing in some industries, is like, oh, they're just supposed to know. They're supposed to be just good at this. This is what they're supposed to do. Well, the people that are good at it have either taken it upon themselves to figure out that that's what they need to do and be good at it, and they're going to just become good at it. Most of the time, it's because they've been coached and trained, and it's been a thing that's been a regular development of theirs, and now they're displaying that skill, right? So there's accountability both ways. I know we're sticking on the employee themselves, which I don't know. I guess it's employee versus employer or
manager,
or organizational
because you have that middle
structure.
management.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So yeah, from an employee perspective, be proactive, but also, I'm sure we'll get to the other side. Make sure you're able to give the accountability, a baseline to start with. I mean, that has to happen. Yep.
Yeah, and and the other way to look at it is, if you feel that you are a top performer, and you are amongst a team and they are below your performance level, how can you raise the bar? Is you hold your teammates accountable. So it's not just the manager's job to hold everyone accountable. It's everyone's job to display that leadership quality of holding your peers, those below you, those above you. There has to be accountability all around. And that's the only way an organization is going to completely eliminate entitlement and elevate that performance level to just limitless heights, right? It's that 360 accountability.
Hey, my fellow impactful engineers, if there's one thing that you could do to help out this community, is to keep listening to the podcast, but also that if you found value in it, to share it with one person, give us a 5-star review, or even leave a text review. It'll only take a few seconds of your time. Find that person that you think could enjoy some of this or learn from it, and pass on the good word. Now back to the show. How should someone, as an employee, hold themselves accountable? Do you have a specific example? How can they just do it themselves?
Honestly, it's a good way is something that you and I have done before, right? Is we write down 3 to 5 things that we need to get done that day, and we make sure we do those things before moving on to anything else, or at least do those things by the end of the day. And if we if we miss one, right, and keep it low, a low number, right? You don't want to put 20 different things on there because that's just unrealistic. And and you do that every day, and you keep checking off those wins, and you can look back, keep it on a paper journal or something, and you're going to look back and be like, wow, I've been kicking ass all these days. And that's kind of holding yourself accountable just right there. If you are not doing it, you're going to look back and be like, wow, I've not setting out, or I'm not accomplishing the things that I've set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that I need to change that, because if I can't just do 3 simple things a day, how am I going to be ultra successful in my career field?
Which is, in a sense, holding yourself accountable.
Exactly.
For the result, making the necessary changes so that the result becomes the something that you want it to be.
Yep.
Right. And that's a very simple way of putting it. A very simple example. 3 things. Did I get the 3 things done? No. Why? Okay, let's try it again tomorrow. But it's very effective at being scaled to the very complicated things. It's, in its essence, is very simple. Another one of those simple things, right? Hard to execute, hard to follow through.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would be an example of? So there's the employee themselves trying to balance that equation and make the entitlement lower. What's the other variable? How does the company start building entitlement out of the gate? What are they doing to do that?
Building entitlement or pushing
What do
it
they
down?
what do they do that could possibly build it, and what are they doing that could possibly close the gap?
Yeah. Well, building entitlement is, I mean, it's easy, right? You give everything to the employee, whether it's giant benefits, or you can go home after 4 hours today, no big deal, and you missed a deliverable by a few weeks. It's not a big deal, well, it was done at least, that kind of attitude. It's, that is going to make the employee be like, well, I mean, it doesn't matter if I finish it on time or a month late. My job's fine. So, that's going to set their bar of success very, very low. But they're going to, with all these rewards that they're getting, they're going to keep expecting that. I mean, that's entitlement, right?
Yeah.
At least
So
that's how I see it.
sure, yeah. And people are listening to this are going to think, "Oh, that's well, duh." This is very simple.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But there's it's not that blatant, right? There's a certain amount of unawareness going around in building that entitlement. So the gap's closer than that. That's an extreme example. Give them everything
Yeah.
and hold them accountable to nothing. But there's still instances where people or organizations will feel they're holding people accountable and doing it the right way, and they're not, and they're building that resentment and then ultimately entitlement because they should be getting all these things and having all these benefits of a great culture, but not have to be held accountable, right? So they kind of slip, and so it's this vicious cycle of building that entitlement. And of course, where I think part of the solution comes in is just that an entitled employee is the product of a lazy leader, in my opinion. That opinion that I've held for a long time and that I strongly believe in has helped me in many, many things, including building a great culture, building a great team, having a great time at work, getting things done, and being able to handle periods of crazy workload and still feel great on the other side has all been through taking accountability on my part as a leader for other people, right? So if I'm, and it kind of goes into my topic, but I won't go too far into it. If I have expectations set for someone else on the team and they don't meet those expectations, so I've created the accountability foundation, I'm going to hold them accountable to it. But in the background, I'm thinking the entire time, what did I do to allow this person to fail? And some people don't have a great reaction to that and my method because, well, those other people should just be able to carry their own weight. Those other people should just be able to figure it out. They should, they should, they should. Well, that's great. But shoulds don't win contracts. Shoulds don't get deliverables out. Shoulds don't build confidence in people. Shoulds don't build skills in people. Taking accountability for yourself as the leader, thinking about how can I train them differently? How can I speak to them differently? How can I hold them accountable in a different way? How can I inspire them? How can I teach them better? What can I do? Right? Not this, they should. That,
Yeah, and that's ownership right there.
right. So just another big, I would say it's a big piece, but there's one of many pieces that fits into this kind of scenario of entitlement building. And I want to stay on that because everybody listening is going to think they're not entitled, but they are. There's certain levels in everyone, and I have to keep it in check. Steve has to keep it in check,
Absolutely.
because it's very, very easy to slip into that, and I have to keep it in check every day. I think I do a fantastic job, and that I deserve this and that. Well, that's great. I try really hard to back it up and balance that equation to minimize the entitlement for sure. And I slip up every once in a while, and that's okay. But I recognize it, and I hold myself accountable to my baseline, right? So I would say, well, I want to hear your thoughts first, Steve, on who's the most influential, what's variable has the most impact as far as what an individual can do to change the entitlement. Who does that lie in?
I mean, it's always in the individual who understands it.
I like that
you,
answer.
like whoever is listening to this, that's the person that has the most impact on understanding how to change course of the direction of the culture.
Right. And I want to be very clear that it's not the other person.
Yes.
It's you. You are the person that has the most impact. Whether you're trying to change entitlement levels in somebody else or yourself, you have the greatest impact. Because guess what? If the other person that you're working with has that same view, sky's the limit on what you guys can accomplish together without building that entitlement sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect time to say, share the show, because everyone needs to understand this.
Right. Which I think a lot of people think they do, but I want to weave that extreme ownership into that equation on both sides. Every variable, it comes down to you. So it's very good.
Yeah.
I like that. Is there, I don't know, anything else on entitlement, no matter how far or wide the range is? What do you want to talk about on entitlement?
No, I think I do want to dispel the myth of generational entitlement. Everyone says, "Oh, millennials, they're so entitled."
Yeah, what a load of shit.
Or Gen X or no, not Gen X. What's the newest one? I don't even know. Who cares?
I don't care. Enough, so.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a generational thing. It's an individual thing. I've seen people who are in all generations feel entitled, and I've seen people in all generations that kick ass at what they do, and they execute. They hold themselves accountable, like no question, and they are rock stars. And I know a guy in our company that just got out of school recently, and he's amazing. It's like, so obviously there's not a generational thing. It's an individual thing. There's different characters out there. There's different cultures. There's different, upbringings, etc. And so, there's a million factors that will play into, who is entitled, quote unquote, or who is not. But I just want to dispel that myth because it's not a generational thing.
Yeah, people want to use that because it's the easy way out, which means they're entitled.
Yep, exactly.
So it's about the definition. It's who wants to use this definition? Can it catch on really easy? Oh, it is? Great. We're going to turn it into a generational problem, and we're going to totally miss out because we've labeled these people as entitled. We're going to totally miss out on their full potential, and we're going to move on until we find someone that is not at the entitlement level that we want, right? And if they're not what we labeled the other person, great, they can be not entitled. But if they're that same person, oh shoot, we're going to find a way to make sure that they are labeled as entitled, right? You got to get rid of that mindset to just wholesale. Oh yeah, this whole generation's entitled. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah. You'd be surprised though, a lot of people hold that viewpoint. And so you shouldn't ever.
Yeah,
So,
and it applies to many, many, many things.
oh,
So
yeah, of course.
if you apply the same logic to a lot of the stuff that drive your actions every day, and you're going to start figuring out that you're making a lot of decisions based on some lazy thinking. So
Yep. Exactly. So I just want to throw that out there at the end, just because a lot of people have that, thought of, oh, it's like this generation's entitled, and that there's just no hope for them, or etc. But that's just clearly not the case.
right.
So, anyways, I think that's pretty much sums up what I wanted to talk about on that topic. It's kind of a shorter topic, but it's something that I feel is needed to be heard across the masses. So, Jacob, what have you been thinking about lately? What's on your mind?
You know, it seems like every single week that we do this, there's something that has come up like literally right before I get on the podcast. You know what I mean? And I'm afraid that it's going to be, and I'm usually at work, right? So I'm afraid it's going to be like seasons of what we're doing to improve our culture at work that I bring to the episode, like every time, right? But I'm still going to talk about what I want to talk about today, and hopefully it resonates with somebody. And I'm thinking, the more I think about it, it's like, okay, we're probably going to say the same stuff over and over a few times because, and that's fine because certain people are not going to listen to certain episodes, and there could be different, there's a whole different
Yeah.
audience that could be listening at any one time. This will be uploaded for years, so I think it's great.
Yeah. I think just real quick, there's something else to that as well. Is as you and I continue to learn ourselves, our perspectives may change, or we may have additional thoughts that we want to add to the topic. And so we may talk about the same thing here and there, or even often, like communication. But we're going to continue to bring new, fresh ideas out of it for our listeners as we evolve ourselves, because we're still in the middle of our careers, or maybe you could argue beginning middle of our careers.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've done a decent amount, but we have a long way to go still. And as we gain experience, as we kick ass more and more, we're going to gain more perspective and more experiences to share.
And what's interesting and kind of what happened today with me is that you can change your perspective based on what is being discussed at the time, the scenario you're in, how much energy you have, stuff like that. So it kind of gets, you can bring a different flavor, for sure.
Oh yeah.
And a big one of mine is that, and I mentioned earlier that a follower's failure is the leader's failure in my mind, right? And so let's just expand a little bit more on that. It's something I've held true to myself for a very long time. It's become popular, recently. I think it's got, well, at least more people are talking about it now. I like this whole idea of extreme ownership, right? And there's multiple benefits to it. So it's not I'll make a bold statement, right? Every single follower's failure is the failure of the leader. Well, it's not, of course, right? Somebody getting tripped up and eating it hard is not, what control do you have over that? Sure, I get it.
Yeah.
But if you take on that mindset of, in any situation, even if you're not clearly defined as the leader in that scenario, right? And there's followers and there's a leader. If you constantly debrief and think, what could I have done personally to change the outcome or the result of what we just accomplished together? What could I have done? So you're putting that ownership on yourself. It's a great reflection tool. and it helps you to discover things about yourself you never really thought you would discover, right? It takes you into this mode of thinking that kind of flips the script a little bit, and you come up with a lot of good ideas about what you can do. And then, but remembering to do that is the hardest part of it. And I want to touch on that because it's a practical application of this. Um, Things that you will figure out about yourself when you reflect in this mind state of extreme ownership are not your natural tendencies. Your natural tendencies got you the outcome, for the most part, that you received. When you reflect, you're taking intentional time to think about what else could have happened, right? And that in itself is going to bring about tendencies or actions that you could take that are not the norm, which is what you were performing in the to get the original outcome. So if you just think about it and go, huh, yeah, I could have done that, and then you move on, you're going to do what you naturally did before again, right? So if you think about it, don't just go, huh, and then move on. Write it down somewhere where you're going to come back and see it every day, read it every day, try to apply it every day, and do that for a period of time to where it's sunken into your brain, to where it's not a new natural tendency, but it's an augmentation of a natural tendency, right? Otherwise, you're just going to lose it.
Yeah, it goes back to doing the reps, right? Building that discipline to do the uncomfortable thing of reflecting and changing your behavior to improve what you've identified as a flaw.
Yep. And you'll this is, you're going to mess up again, and you're going to go, dang it, I knew I should have done that. And you're going to do that repeatedly, but the goal is to not get rid of, but improve on all of those small things over time. So there's going to be this scale that slowly goes up, but over time. But if you zoom into a really finite point of it, you're going to see all these ups and downs and extreme this way and that way. But in general, it should be improving, right? And you can use this extreme ownership self-reflection tool to do that if you follow through, right? And I find writing it down on a piece of paper in a journal is the best way to do that. Computer is fine too, but I just feel like you got to think a lot more about the handwriting of it, and it solidifies it in your brain. You see the paper, you're smelling it, and stuff like that. Feeling the pen in your hands. So, you can equate this sliding improvement to weight loss, to anything physical with your body is a great example because, as I weighed 215 pounds in the beginning of this year. And I decided that that's too heavy and I want to be 175 because I like being at that weight. And I gave myself a little over a year to do it. But I'm tracking my weight once. I weigh in once in the same conditions every Monday morning. I weigh in. Sometimes it's higher than I expected. Sometimes it's lower. Sometimes it goes back. Sometimes I regress back to a weigh-in that was 4 weeks prior. And it can be very discouraging to people that have seen that for the first time. But then the progress you're making the next week goes way down. So it fluctuates, like even though you're doing the same stuff. But when I zoom out to the end of 2023 and I put all my data points in and I graph it, it's going to be a very slowly downward trend, right? And you're going to be very happy with that progress that you made over the year. And you're not going to be so happy week to week. And if you allow it to make you unhappy, you're going to struggle through the whole thing and you probably won't get to that nice, good graph at the end of the year. So it's the same thing with improving upon your natural tendencies. You want to take one bite at a time. You want to pick up one gold BB at a time. There is no eating the whole thing at once, and there is no, whatever the other side of that saying is. There's no picking up the big-ass diamond and you're done. It's an accumulation of a million bites or a million little gold BBs at a time that's going to get you where you want to go, right? And then the failures and the swings in between. So tying that all back to this extreme ownership mentality where a follower's failure is a leader's failure, if you take those as lessons learned, small, systematic changes at a time over a longer period of time, a year from now you will have grown so immensely, everyone's going to notice, your team's going to be better, and that entitlement, tying it back, is going to go way down. because you put in the work.
I think a a good way to put it into engineer speak, right, is you have a project. You execute the project over whatever time, and you have your end result of a project, whether it's a new product or like stuff you do like construction project or whatever, and you sit down, you do your lessons learned from that project. You figure out, okay, how could we have done this a little faster? How could we improve the quality a little bit? How could we have saved a little money? Reduce cost, etc. And then the next project, you implement those small little discoveries that you've made during the last lessons learned of that project. And that next project is just that little bit better. You saved a little bit more money. You had a little bit better quality of a product, and you did it in a little bit less time. And then you do another lessons learned at the end of that project. And you find more areas where you can improve whether it's your process or your resource allocation. Maybe you're focusing in that area instead of cost and time. And so the third project, you implement those, and then now everything goes a little bit more smoothly than the second project. And it's over time, you get better and better and better and better at executing these projects. So it's a direct correlation to the same concept, just in an engineer's world of projects and their work, right? And so you can apply it to, as you said, health and fitness. You can apply it to just being an awesome employee. You can apply it to your actual projects that you're working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true across the board, right?
Yep.
So take the simple concepts that we're giving you and see if you can apply them to many, many, many facets of your life and your work, for sure. I think that's it. One last thing I'll leave you with is I like to show my authentic self sometimes, and I'm very deep down inside me, my natural tendency, I'm a very no bullshit, no nonsense, get the fuck over it type of person, right? That butts heads with a lot of people. And I don't do that. I keep it under wraps pretty good these days, right? I'm very approachable, very nice, very in tune with having empathy, knowing what other people have been through, because, as I gain years and now it's like marriage, kids, deaths in the family, all this stuff that happens, you gain this whole big world perspective. So I'm much better at not letting that natural tendency take over and be a weakness. But I also use it as an extreme strength within myself. Now, it's not very effective if I step up in front of my team and start yelling at them, right? But when I have some internal dialogue with myself, I actually use that because it's my natural tendency and it speaks to me. So what I would say is, like, know your natural tendencies and who you are, and see if it's going to be helpful for you to put a little chip on your shoulder or make a little fake enemy out of something. I'm gonna get that next time. I'm not missing that next time. You won't see me do that again, you little bastard.
That's holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, and it kind of ties back into that. But whatever that version is for yourself, like, be free to lean into that, right? And be free to hold yourself accountable using that natural tendency that you have inside, because it helps me all the time. And just like we've been talking about, the biggest one is the extreme ownership. And I look at it and I go, okay, well, in a recent scenario for me is like, hey, this one person should have known this. They use the should word again. And I'm just like, that's a trigger for me. Should. Okay, great. They should have known this and it would have been better. Like, they should know that. Okay, that's great. They should, but do they know? So fucking do something about it, right? That's my internal dialogue. I would never say that to somebody else. That does not come across well, and we'd probably end up punching each other in the face.
He says it to me all the time, by the way.
Well, you deserve it.
Yeah.
I'm just
always.
No, I'm really not. You do. No, it's all good. I just use that. I go, that's great. They should, but they don't. So why don't we do something about it? And so then I'll go do something about it, right? And it always ends up best. And you don't necessarily have to just like run to the person and tell them, hey, you need to know this. You just implement it, right? As you work with them, you implement it. Okay, this natural tendency that's a weakness came up and I saw it. They didn't check in with so-and-so and they didn't know this thing was coming up. So I'm just going to be more coaching and receiving to feedback from him and giving feedback back in a way that's going to help him realize that he needs to do the coordination. And he's going to learn. And it's going to be great. And 100% of the time that works. Sometimes it takes longer or shorter, or you fail, or you give a big win, like the little graph we were talking about. But in the end, it always just like the team becomes super strong after that. And I've never once said, this is your weakness and we need to work on it. And why the hell didn't you know how to do this? It's common sense. What the hell's your problem? What were you thinking? That's my favorite. What were you thinking? I've heard all these things before. Guess how effective they are? 0. None. They actually made me go backwards when I was working in a place that was like that. Right? So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Use your natural tendencies as a weapon for you, as something to drive yourself. So,
yeah. Yeah. And you've heard us mention extreme ownership or just ownership in general quite often. Jocko Willink and Leif Baven, I think is how you pronounce his last name and first name. They have a book called Extreme Ownership. Jake and I have both read it. Great information there. So my action item for everyone is get that book and read it.
Yeah, it's the most plain and simple, forthright way of this extreme ownership freaking mentality. I had it for a very, very long time, and then I heard it put into this book or read the book, and it was like, okay, great. That's now the name I give it. And the examples are great, and you can tie it into any way that you want to.
Yeah, and it's a great read.
It is a good book. Yeah, I agree. I use that mentality quite often. It's not my main tool or anything, but it's a good one. Yeah. Great. So that's the show today. Hope you share it if you heard something that is of value to you. It's the only way the show is going to grow is if you share it word of mouth. We're not going to be putting a million ads or pasting it all over the social media to gain attention. We just want it to grow organically and represent who we are and how we change. So, Steven, you got anything to say?
I do. So we are opening up a new email. It's going to be questions@impactfulengineer.com. So we want to hear what you want us to talk about. Like what do you want us to talk about? Do you have a question specifically about engineering, management, being a high performance employee, communication with your boss, interview questions, how to interview someone, anything that's on your mind about engineering and being a more impactful engineer. So please send us an email, either Jake, myself, or both of us. It doesn't matter. So send something out.
Excellent.
And we'll talk about it on the show.
Very good. Questions@impactfulengineer.com. Peace. Hey guys, I hope you had a great time listening. Maybe you learned something new, maybe you got inspired, or at least took one thing away that you'd be able to use. Maybe you just had a good laugh. Impactful Engineering's hope and mission is that through this podcast, we can play a small part in expanding the reach and awareness of engineering and all of its many areas of application. The multiple engineering career paths available can be hugely rewarding as part of a fulfilled life, creating opportunity to impact nearly everyone in the modern world. An engineer's work helps to foster creation of new technologies, create safe and comfortable environments in which people can work, and lends to the sustainable future of everyone on the planet. The world needs more impactful engineers. Our vision is to provide engineers with the perspective and the tools to allow themselves the opportunity to become the most impactful engineers they can be. Included in our vision is to grow the impactful engineering community to a point where we can provide full ride scholarships to students in every single U.S. state every single year. This is an enormous goal, and with your help, we can get there. To start, we will continue to execute this mission in the way that we know how, having conversations, telling stories, and talking about what we find interesting and are passionate about. If the episode made you think, made you object, made you think you could possibly be doing something more with your day, or brought about an idea that you could spend more time on developing further, please share the show or recommend it to your friends. Even if you didn't personally think it was a huge help, there may be someone that you know that could benefit from it, and that's all we can ask for. Until next time on the Impactful Engineer Podcast.